This is Otaku No Video, Episode 30, F, A Tale of Memories, Episodes 1 through 3. Alright, so today we are talking about F, A Tale of Memories. Memories. Yes, I keep getting confused with these two series now. This is Memories, the first series. We're going to talk about the first 3 episodes, which we both watched in the past couple of days and going into in detail. And the first thing to talk about here is just sort of, does this pull you in, especially the first episode? Does it suck you in? I personally didn't really get pulled in until the end of the first episode and introducing Renji and Chihiro's plotline. Until that point, it was kind of cliched, and so I just didn't really find anything interesting. But I was definitely intrigued with them, and I think it was a good idea for them to put that at the end. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it's very hard for Slice of Life to really pull anybody in.
True.
And here I don't think is any real exception to that. There are some interesting things going on as of Episode 3. However, I don't think Episode 1 makes enough hint of something else going on. It certainly shows some level of intelligence, which is very nice to see. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say that it really made me want to watch Episode 2. You know, maybe it was very neutral in my opinion. I don't think it was really, oh, what happens next?
Well, one of the problems I had is character design. I think the girls look different, which is nice, although that's mostly, I think, hair color and hairstyle. But, like, the guys, it wasn't until Episode 2 that I realized there was more than one male character.
Yeah, that took me a while, too, and actually I still cannot remember all the girl characters' names.
Yeah, me neither. And part of the problem is that granted, it's a large cast, and there are a number of characters that we haven't seen that much of. So, like, I still do know, at this point, a couple characters' names, which is about average for me for this kind of a show. But, yeah, I feel like there's just a lot of characters, and they feel kind of cookie-cutter to me.
Yeah, especially with this chibi, ultra-cute style.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the, really, really huge eyes with really, really huge pupils and massive hair.
Yeah, it's a little bit cuter than Haruhi, but I don't know that it's...
Yeah, I think you can take a style too far.
Yeah.
And I think this is taking it just that bit too much. And it's not that it's ugly, and it's not that it doesn't work. It's just, for me, it's further than I like to see character designs.
Yeah, I think that's agreed. This sort of reminds me of what little I've seen of Higurashi.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely more like what the visual novels and the dating sims trend towards. And it's interesting, I mean, these designs are usually scaled back for the anime adaptations, and it's kind of interesting to see that those are starting to bleed more into the regular anime designs.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a huge problem unless you're very much against cute stuff.
Yeah.
And you like your Jinro and, all that stuff. Exactly, yeah. You just cannot, Kaneda has to look like this and things like that.
Well, if you can go from American animation to anime, you can go from anime to this.
That's true.
I will say that I like the character relationships, especially as it moved on. It felt like a mixed bag of characters. I love the stuff with Chihiro. That felt natural for folks who haven't met before and are kind of attracted to each other, but it felt very awkward, reasonably so. But the rest of them is just very cliched.
Yeah, it's just sort of, and actually, I noted that for the voice cast as well, that they just sound so much like, they sound exactly like I see them.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily bad, but I don't know, just a little bit more imagination might have been nice and might have spun the top a little bit more in a direction that would have been possibly more interesting. Now, obviously, just if they changed the voices and they didn't change personalities and relationships and things like that, then it wouldn't really have mattered that much. But yeah, by and large, I think the relationships aren't that interesting. Although I actually have a lot of interest in, I cannot remember his name, the blonde guy who's in the film club.
Oh, yeah, that is very interesting.
And I think that, because I feel like, personally, I feel like Chihiro's everything has almost, I don't know, maybe it's because I spent some time thinking about it, and now I feel like it's done. Like, I don't know that they can explain any more than I've already written on about this illness and things like that, but those are about the only two real things, and I can't remember if it's Ato or Renji, whichever one's the manga artist.
I think that's Otto.
Okay, or Aso?
Yeah, whatever.
Exactly. Not Renji. I don't know, it's just very... and I think him reaching for his dreams and things like that is a little bit more illustrative and things like that, and that makes it fun to watch rather than...
Yeah, I did like the fact that the characters, at least the male characters, have things that they're trying to accomplish, or at least by episode 3, they all have something that they're planning on doing at some point, as opposed to the typical anime protagonist who's just sort of there. And it's interesting watching this because it is very much unlike a typical anime storyline where you start off with the premise in episode 1 and then from that point on you're sort of building on that. This is taking a much more evolutionary approach to who the characters are and their relationships and what's going on. I really liked what was going on with the film club guy in episode 3 because that kind of came out of nowhere and it showed us some more interesting things going on.
Yeah.
In terms of direction, in terms of like cinematography, there's a lot of artistic flim-flammery going on. I mean, all of a sudden a shot will be black and white. All of a sudden they'll do this very neat little thing with like they'll do a cutout with like this animation behind it, which is visually striking, but certainly in episode 1, I think it got better as it went on. But it started out feeling like just weird imagery for the sake of weird imagery. I didn't feel like I was getting any extra information from those different shots or that there was any reason for them to be different except for them to be different. I think they did do better with that as the series went on, but I don't know, it feels a bit like they're reaching for me.
Yeah, that's my exact reaction is... that's sort of cool in episode 1 where we see the cell phone with the text message side by side with, I think it's Aso leaning back on his chair.
Yeah.
And things like that, but then like the wheel, how that comes into focus before everything else does in episode 1, and some other things, just sort of being stylistic for the sake of being stylistic.
Yeah, and I was thinking back to Lane, for example, and how Lane is very weird and very visually striking, and they'll toss in things that don't make sense immediately. But the stuff that they do is there for a reason, if complete misdirection. But I always got more of a feel from that series that there was a method to it as opposed to this. And again, maybe I'll change that, but it seems to me like it can be.